Good morning and welcome to today's presentation. Our presentation topic is about motivation in the workplace and will be presented by Fiona, George, Honko, Jonathan, and Kate. Our presentation will first begin with the evidence gathering method, and then we'll talk about the case study and the link between theory and practice.
During the gathering of evidence about employee motivation in the workplace, we have come up with several research methods. In the very first stage of the presentation, we just had a very general idea about employee motivation in practice through our observation. To begin with, we then used university library and serious database to access books, journal articles, and previous research papers to have some idea of how to structure our presentation and guidance in further research. Then we decided to go and talk to our employers. Members in our group have got some part-time jobs in different industries, some working in a restaurant, the other working in retail or service industry. So this approach can give us a quick glance of employee motivation right in our workplace, plus our observation during the time working there. Together, we then compare how motivation practice might vary across industries. With the aim of giving a big picture of employee motivation to our audiences, we then conducted a small interview with friends who now graduate and working full time in different companies, see how the motivation strategy works in a larger scale where people work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. We also keep up to date with TV news, newspaper, and talking to HR consultant in a small firm to find evidence supporting our presentation along the way. Also, the internet is where we find real case study and updated information about different motivation approaches in practice. As we went through our presentation, we realized that most of the research methods that are mentioned, except the internet and our talk with our own employers, tend to give us a very narrow view of what's currently going on in HR practice. Say UNSW Library, quite a number of old research papers are no longer considered relevant to the current dynamic workplace. If we rely on the findings from our talk with friends and HR consultant, due to the time limit, we cannot conduct a deep level interview to ask them every single question regarding our topic. It could be hard for us to retrieve the information that we need through TV news and newspapers as well. And sometimes just a very brief information in the newspaper that we consider not enough. For those reasons, we decided to use the internet and our talk with our employers as the main tool because they offer an up-to-date motivation strategy in practice and valid research finding, time saving, and convenience because like you have a talk with your employers so they can tell you what their strategy is. They can be honest to you so they because some information might be considered as confidential or secret in business, so they might not want to share with people outside the workplace. Taylor's motivational theory is one of the theories that we're going to talk about in today's presentation. And Tesco is the company we choose to examine in great detail how they apply the Taylor's theory in practice. Tesco is the third largest retailer in the world measured by revenues and the second largest measured by profits after Walmart. It has stores in 14 countries and is the grocery market leader in the UK. Since the first store opened in 1929, Tesco has expanded across the world. Tesco growth has resulted in a worldwide workforce of over 400,000 employees. To support its growth, Tesco needs staff who are motivated in the workplace. We will then have a look at how Tesco motivates its employees through applying Taylor's motivational theory in practice. According to Taylor's motivational theory, people work purely for money. The higher pay, the more they're willing to work. Say, for example, if you want higher productivity, you can offer to pay your employees per unit they produce. Tesco's employee reward program has some similarity to Taylor's theory. Its financial reward package is one motivating factor. However, there are factors other than money which motivate people in both their personal and working life. Tesco goes far beyond Taylor and gives more than just a simple pay increase. It supports the varied lifestyles of individual employees through relevant and targeted benefits such as pension scheme or gym membership. Many non-financial factors can and do motivate employees to improve their output. One such factor might be the desire to serve people, or can be to improve personal skills or to achieve promotion. Same as the fact that a person may be motivated to be a professional footballer not because of the salary they receive, but because their love for football. Employees are motivated if they feel happy in their work. This often happens when their employer creates a good working environment where employees feel that they are being valued, generally through the increased communication and being asked for their opinions. That's why every year Tesco they invite its staff to take part in a staff satisfaction survey called Viewpoint, which gives them the opportunity to express their views on almost every aspect of their job. The results from the survey help Tesco make sure that it is offering the right things to the staff to keep them motivated. Through such survey, Tesco has delivered some benefits to motivate their employees, which include lifestyle break. This one offers 4 to 12 weeks off work and guarantees the job back in the end. Or career break, which allows staff between 6 months and 5 years away from work with the right to return. Or not to mention the pension scheme, which provides clearly defined benefit in the long term.
So now we move on to goal setting theory. And the general premise of goal setting theory is that when a person has a target they want to meet, they will work to meet it. But it's important to make goals that produce the highest level of motivation and performance. Goal setting theory relies heavily on the idea that we are motivated by what we consciously want to achieve. Locke and Latham articulated the idea of goal setting theory in 1968. It's been refined, and in 1986, Locke and Henn discussed 4 ways in which goals motivate an individual. They provide a sense of self-direction. A person feels as though they are directing their own work and they are responsible for the method they get to their goal. They can serve as a motivational force. It is believed that people want to work harder towards an end target. Goals help us to persist in the process of achieving it. And finally, goals can stimulate a search for the most effective strategies to achieve them. That being said, there are still 3 criteria that a goal must meet in order to be effective. It must be specific. Locke argued that the do your best style goals are ineffective as they do not provide a specific direction. A goal should be difficult but not impossible to accomplish. It should be challenging enough for the person to undertake. However, if it's too difficult, it can lead to the person just giving up. Every goal should be accepted by the person undertaking it. A person must be committed to its completion. A restaurant I personally worked at used the idea of goal-setting theory that had been adopted elsewhere in an attempt to get the most out of their employees, particularly the kitchen hands. Oftentimes the entire kitchen would stay behind to help the kitchen hands clear up mess, and no one could understand why it was difficult to complete the job in a reasonable amount of time, and began causing tensions between both the kitchen hands and the chefs. The management began observing the working habits of the kitchen hand staff throughout the night, and noticed that a majority of the time was spent talking amongst themselves while doing very little work. This left more work to be completed at the end of the night. The staff were paid on an hourly rate, and it seemed that many of them were extending the time they worked in order to increase their pay. The managers began speaking with the kitchen hands to find out more about their situations and what could get them working more effectively. Most of the kitchen hand staff were students or working parents, and any extra time they could have off would be of great benefit to them, but they did not want to lose whatever income they could earn. The management decided with the staff that the rate of pay would be a flat rate for the night, and at the same rate they were already being paid. Therefore, no matter how many hours they worked that night, they would get paid the same amount at the end. A whiteboard was also set up so that the amount of time it took past closing time to complete the work could be recorded and new goals could be set. The ultimate goal was to drop the time spent after hours to below 45 minutes. There was an immediate change in the working habits of all people on staff. The chefs and kitchen hands began to communicate, and whatever tension existed was let go. The chefs no longer complained about cleaning up, and the kitchen hand staff began doing more work and more efficiently, taking pride in what they were doing. Eventually, the chefs no longer had to stay back to complete extra clean-up, and the kitchen hands were paid the same amount but were rewarded with shorter hours. When asked, the management gave this comment: "There's no point in trying to pay them more per hour. That's just going to make them want to stay back even more. You can't motivate someone by simply telling them to work harder. They have to get something out of it as well. Within 2 weeks, we were shortening our working times by just over an hour. Since everyone is now on effectively a salary, everyone wins. Now it's time to set another goal somewhere else in the system."